And that's partly why to this day my brand is fucking up.
That's as in like not your brand is fucked, but kind of like your brand is colon like fucking up.
Exactly, because like I've never been really that good at being polished and about not making mistakes or not saying jokes that's, I'm a pretty funny guy, but like one out of every X number of jokes I tell just like hits the floor like a ton of bricks. So I've just early on figured out a way like, okay, being unpolished and occasionally just dropping a real clanker, like that's your brand, and just
Yeah.
lean into that. I've been
There's
very lucky to like get away with that.
there's a real like skill to that in terms of like, and it's I guess it's something that you probably learned being a comic, but I found like the longer I did stand up, I found different ways to kind of make the fuck up like the joke itself. Like you
Yes.
thought that the punchline was going to be fucking hilarious, and then it dies, and then you managed to turn the fact that it died into the thing that everyone finds funny. You know?
Well, for example, I have this bit now about how I'm bad in bed, and the last joke that I'm building toward genuinely never gets the response I want it to. And then
Right.
all of a sudden I was like, that's it. Like, that's the joke. Like, and now you know what it's like having sex with me. Not giving the response I feel like my performance was worthy of is literally what this whole bit is about. So now that's the new end to the joke. Instead of like da 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 silence, it's da 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 silence. And now you know what I've been talking about this whole time, and the audience really comes on board for that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very meta. It's like sort of going levels deep. Like this, I know you thought I was going to crack a joke here, but actually, this entire routine is just a metaphor for my sexual performance.
Correct, which is fine.
Yeah. Okay, so then you stuck with the podcast, and things have been going well, but the whole time you've been doing stand up comedy as well.
Not the whole time. So again, to go back to the beginning, I wanted to be a comedian, but I didn't do stand-up comedy. I actually did stand-up comedy for the first time ever at the Comedy Store in the original room because one of the cast
Fuck.
members of the show I worked on forced me to go. And it was as awful as you can imagine. It was terrible, but I found it so traumatizing that I didn't do it again for many, many years. It wasn't until like 2010 I did it again.
Do you, when you say it was awful, it was traumatizing, you mean like you did a what 5 spot and you thought it was going to go like it was great material, but then it tanked, like you died on your ass, or
No, I think it was a 3 minute spot that it was bad material, and I tanked, and I blacked out up there, and I ran the light because I had blacked out, and yes, and
do
it was
you
just
do you remember any of the material that you did?
yes. I remember doing a joke about working on a TV show and my grandma not understanding that there was a difference between working on a TV show and being on a TV show.
Right.
And she would always be like, I'm watching now, I don't see you. And I'm like, well, first of all, grandma, I work behind the scenes. Second of all, like, is that MASH? I think you're watching a show that went off the air in the 70s. So, it's like, okay, it's not great, but then also I'm just like shaking and nervous up
Yeah.
there and forgetting parts of it. And there's no, like, even that way, I just delivered it as a very confident, we'll say late 30s-year-old person. It was nothing compared to what I did up there. So, it's just, my best friend described it. He said it was like childbirth. He said it was ugly and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. Here's what's fucked though, is like if you got up there now as a relatively polished comic, do you think you could do the same material and somehow make it work?
I think I could do more or less the same material and have it not die completely. Yes. And oddly enough, I've been going through all of my old notebooks now from that era to be like, did I have anything that was actually pretty good concept? I just wasn't very good at being a comedian then. And there's a couple of things I dug out. I dug out this one bit about how so, like, you've moved house before, and every time you move house, you like go around to all your friends. You just start begging for boxes from people, right? Like, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you got any boxes? You go to the stores, and it's embarrassing. So, there's one time I was moving, and I was like, I'm not doing it this time. I'm just gonna buy containers, right? Like, I'm gonna buy plastic containers. I'm gonna go to the container store. I'm gonna buy how much could it possibly cost? And then you get to the Container Store and all the sizes are off. Like they're all listed in fluid. It's like, oh, I don't know how many gallons of DVDs I own. Like I don't know how many of these to buy. And so that's a joke that kind of works. There's too much buildup I'm seeing right now. But, like how many gallons of DVDs? That's something I wrote like back in 2008 or something like that, that I think I could figure out a way to make funny now.
You could see the observational quality to it. There's some currency to it. You could definitely, you could do something with it. I found I think my first gig, literally my first ever gig, was at Southwark Rooms, which you may or may not know. It's sort of near South Bank in like Waterloo kind of area. And there was like 3 people in the audience and then comedians. And I went up on stage and I was like trying to be a sort of like white Chris Rock, but like with his cadences and everything. Like, no, I didn't
interesting.
I didn't full on do, I mean, I was just a massive Chris Rock fan, but I didn't do like an American accent or anything, but it was like that sort of almost.
I actually don't think that's the worst way to go about it. Like, it's obviously cringe now, right?
Yeah.
But you're never going to be the person that you are that first time on stage anyway. And if taking on a persona and if like doing an homage to someone, granted, as long as you're not straight up just doing an impression, like I don't think it's the worst way to get up there and get it under your belt the first time. Like I would actually tell a lot of people. So I run some open mics occasionally at poker events. So they're like community open mics, not really like people trying to be comedians. I'm like, everyone's welcome to get up. If you don't have any material, just tell a joke, like tell a street joke. And I genuinely think that for people's first time, if that's, you just want to go up there and tell a street joke, that's totally fine. Like, so this Chris Rock thing, how did it go?
Fucking terrible. It was so bad. It was like...